just in case you weren't aware of where you were, we are looking at Track 1, Business Planning, Growing a Business. I'm supposed to tell you that if you are looking for Track 2, that is the Business Development and Growth, Funding, and Finance. That's going to be across the hall. My name is Jessica Mossman, and I am a partner and financial advisor with Financial Integrated Solutions. I have the pleasure of bringing up a few different people here today that are going to give you their wisdom and insight on how they have currently grown their business and what they are looking to grow to in the future. First, I want to bring up Jeff Barrato. He's with LifeLast, employed at LifeLast since 1994. He's the president and owner since 2007. He's a member of the Pflugerville Chamber of Commerce, board of directors since 2017, and currently the chamber treasurer. He's the chair of the American Water Works Association, Steel Water Pipe Manufacturers Technical Advisory Committee, Coatings Group. He's the chair of AWWA C222, Standard for Polyurethane Coatings and Linings on Steel Water Pipe and Fittings. He's a member of the American Water Works Association, National Association of Corrosion Engineers, Steel Structures Painting Council, and Austin Retail Manufacturers Association. Jeff has a bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Idaho. He's been married for 25 years and has 3 children ages 22, 20, and 18. Please welcome Jeff Barrato. Next, I'll be bringing up Ms. Lei Wang. She's from Minuteman Press. She was born in Shanghai, came to the States at the early age of 24. After graduate school, she worked at Penn State System and UT Systems for nearly 20 years combined as an IT professional. In August of 2018, she took the separation package from UT and started this commercial printing company you might have heard of called Minuteman Press, a locally owned and operated franchise in Pflugerville. Now she is just entering her 2nd year as a business owner. Her role has changed quite drastically from a stable government employee to a business owner who has to worry about how to pay other people's W-2s. Responding to a burning desire calling from within, it's time to run your own thing. She has been running a tough and exciting race on the business ownership so far. Please welcome Lei Wei. Next, I want to introduce you to Adeline Bowie. She came from Colorado and moved to Texas in 1997. She started in the corporate world at Dell from 98 till 2003 after being on maternity leave. She decided she needed more flexibility of her time because of her new baby, who was allergic to basically everything. She got a real estate license and began to take control of her schedule and business. She started buying real estate and flipping houses before the recession. Once the recession hit, she held her flips as rental and waited for the change in the market. During the recession, she bought and rebuilt a local bar in downtown Pflugerville, Hanover's Draft House, in 2008, and built the second Hanover's in 2016. Since then, she has been involved in many development projects from retail, mixed-use, condos, and many more. Right now, she does have a mixed-use project in downtown Pflugerville that will break ground hopefully late summer of 2020. This project is the beginning of a new downtown and revitalization of the area. Please welcome Adeline Bowie. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce to you Peg Richmond. She's from the Texas State SBDC. As you've heard her praises from many of the panelists before, she has been with Texas State University since June of 2011. She mentors entrepreneurs and technology startups through different types of commercialization activities and consults with small and mid-sized business owners to identify barriers to growth, create optimum strategies for expansion, and implement best strategies to improve profitability. Her specialties are strategic marketing, tech commercialization, and consumer packaged goods manufacturing. Please welcome Peg Richmond. So as I mentioned, today's track is growing a business. As we all know that growing a business can sometimes not be as smooth as we sure have hoped for. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through each of these questions with you all, if you can just go ahead and answer each of them individually. Can you describe one of your most challenging experiences? What you did to address it, and what the key learnings were that helped you to grow your company?
Dorothy? Is this on? Okay. Yeah, it's on. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. For us, really the kind of transitional time was in 2001. It actually aligned with the trade tower issue. And we had a contract that was going to keep us alive. We were struggling. We were deeply in debt. And that contract went away. The government decided not to fund it. And so for us, it was really a reflective period. It was trying to understand what did we do well and what did we not do well. And ultimately what we decided is we didn't really understand what we did well and really where we should focus our time and energy. And through that reflective process, we recognized that we needed to spend time focusing on what we're best at. And I think that's the key is what are you best at? What makes you unique? And for us, it was really just understanding that we are a unique formulary house. We make industrial coatings, but we're chemists. And we compete with some big companies, big paint companies, but we could do things in a unique and different way that they couldn't. So we revisited that. The other big change in consideration for us was that we were a very entrepreneurial company, spent a lot of time chasing new opportunities. And through that process, it's exciting. We never really did a very good job of servicing our existing customer base, and that's something that always bothered us. So we revisited that and changed to a really holistic service environment. I know the question came up earlier. For us, service, even though we are a company that manufactures and sells products, it is really founded on service. That's what makes us unique, is our focus on service. And when I mention holistic, what I mean to that is we spend as much time caring for our vendors and our employees as we do our customers. It's important to maintain your customer base, obviously, but if you don't spend as much time caring for your vendors, whatever capacity that is, and certainly your employees, when things get difficult, it's going to be tough. There's a struggle. In our case, in one instance, there was a worldwide shortage of one of our key raw materials. And because we spent so much time caring for our vendors and paying them quickly, communicating with them what our needs are, when that shortage came up, we continued to have access to that raw material, that product, where some of the biggest paint companies in the world got shut down. It was because we really focused on taking care of them. So for us, it was, circling back, is really understand what we could be best at, and then centering everything on a very holistic service mentality and focus.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lei. To address the question, the biggest challenge I've had, I started my business last year from scratch. It's a brick and mortar shop. I think the biggest challenge for me is really in the marketing. I remember the first month I had, it was a copying job, about $36 in the invoice. I was looking at that check from my first customer, and on the other hand, I have a ton of bills coming from the landlord and then the bills. It was really overwhelming. And then I'm like, what did I do wrong to jump into this? So that is really real challenge. So marketing to me was really new, but thanks to a lot of resources, I was able to go out and learn. So there are a lot of actually learning opportunity in town. When I was working in the UT, it was in the downtown Austin, I started attending Austin Small Business Workshop by taking a few days off here and there. That was a wonderful learning opportunity. You pay about $10 to $20, and you can go there and learn a lot of things. But when you really dive into the water, and you really have to consider there is a discrepancy between what you learn from the textbooks to the reality. So as a technical person, I think my thoughts are very linear. I used to manage servers and then domain controllers, so I get used to the habit of telling people what the rules are. So now I have to listen to my customers and the potential leads, what they want. I think once I learn to listen more, I think that's a big change, and that really makes a difference for me to step up and do the marketing. So now I look at my data. I've been in the business for a little over a year. I think I have some door-to-door marketing success experience, honestly. I have about 30% of my customer coming from the door-to-door marketing. I have about 30 from my Google business, the online business revenue. And I have another, the remaining 30% consists of some walking and some social clubs referrals. So looking at my existing marketing data, I am not very happy, but I feel like I now is not as blank as before, and I kind of know in which channel I should spend more time.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Adeline. The biggest challenge for me as a business owner was the transitions of what do you do once you have a product or a services that is basically function on its own, and you're sitting idle by, because when you first start a business, every waking minute, every sleeping minute, you spend nurturing this baby business until it can walk, run, and do whatever it needs to do without you. So what do, when it doesn't need you anymore? It runs itself. So the transition is figuring out, what do I do next? So, of course, for us, second location. I mean, everybody says, once you have a good, successful first location, you do a second location. Wrong, don't. It's a headache, it's stressful, it's tiresome. But I wouldn't trade it, because it actually opens up other opportunities for me, and it also creates other challenges. As my second location becomes, from infancy into, a little bit of teenage years, I feel that I'm ready for the next challenge. And I think as a business owner, you have to challenge yourself. If you're not facing challenges, if you're not experiencing the challenges, you're not growing. You're not learning what it's supposed to be there for you. I tell people all the time that in my business, you know what you know. And what that means is, you run your business and your experiences and your day-to-day activities and everything that you do, that is your Bible. However, you need other people, other businesses, other challenges to actually give you inside information to what they're going through, because that's how you truly grow, and that's how you can overcome any challenges. So for me, challenges isn't an obstacle, but I think it's a learning opportunity that is there. And we have to be willing, and we cannot be afraid to take it on. So think big, go big, do big.
Hey y'all. So I don't have a business at the moment. However, I did have a business. And so that's the thing that I have learned, and it was incredibly painful to recognize that what I did was so specific in such a niche market that I couldn't teach it to anyone, and I couldn't grow that market, and if there was a slowdown in the market, there was less food in my refrigerator. And so coming to terms with whether or not my product was scalable, it was in demand, and I got paid well for it, but it was very cyclical. And again, I couldn't figure out a way to scale it. I did reach out to mentors and to resource agencies, and was looking desperately for a hard edge against which I can hone myself. And I just didn't find it for me. It has, however, once I went through the process of, figuring out I can't run this business the way I want it to, it's just not a sustainable model. How do I shut it down? How do I then move on with my life? But that decision and that process has informed me about helping others. Because what I see now with my clients are when they reach a certain point and they are ready to scale, there are things that they really have to get in place to be able to scale well and not tank themselves. And the biggest one is usually cash flow, because people don't understand that if you go from this level to this level, your working capital grows exponentially, and they don't plan for that. They plan for the equipment, they plan for hiring another person, but they don't quite get it that, oh, I need 2 times more cash in my business. So those are the things that, you know, I try to look at with my clients and help them so that they don't have to shut their business down like I did.
And as Peg mentioned, cash flow is typically the biggest hurdle that a lot of businesses have to overcome to grow to the next stage. And as Leigh mentioned, learning was most certainly a key. I have a saying that's called fail forward. How do we learn to fail forward? So with that, what type of advice can you give to the audience about how you received funding? Whether you bootstrapped it, whether you received SBA, whether you received money from other organizations, on the growth and the growing of your current business, and what recommendations do you have based on those experiences? I'll start with you, Pam.
Since I don't have a business, it'll be a little awkward to answer that.
What do you see with your clients?
I'm just kidding. So we run the gamut. My preferred method for clients to fund themselves is to bootstrap it. But we do see a lot of people who come into our office expecting to be able to find a grant or to have an idea in their head that they are going to get an investor and blow up real quick. We see that a lot in tech. So that's probably the biggest myth about funding is that, you know, people are not lining up to invest in you. You need to show some market traction. So we have, once you have kind of proven yourself and you are able to tell a compelling story that a vendor might be interested in, we work with a variety of lending organizations who take on more risk or less risk depending on what their preference is. So we can match you with some people who may, depending on what your personal risk is or your business risk is, take and give you more money than, say, a traditional bank. There are also alternative lenders, and we know a lot about which ones are good to work with and which ones are maybe not so good to work with. So again, we just run the gamut, but if you can fund through revenues, that's your best way, I would say, to go forward.
Any new entrepreneur, bootstrapping is going to be your best bet. Families, friends, but keep in mind that when you deal with money with families and friends, there's going to be broken families and broken friends. Definitely come in with a strategy. Don't do it as a favor. Treat them as an investor. And they deserve all the respect of an investor. Pay them the dividends. Have an exit strategy. That's definitely good. And as I was saying that, you know, you kind of have, once you build your resume and people now see your success and basically they trust in you, getting the next round of funding is actually not as hard. Banks are going to approve you more. There's, you know, SBAs. There's definitely a lot of investors. If they see the numbers make sense for them, they would definitely, you know, want to participate. That everybody's in it for a reason. But leveraging banks is why right now is where we're at. We started developing on a bunch of properties, and of course, our first round, no banks want to touch us, and that was the biggest and the hardest challenge that we ever had to run across. But that's when, you know, we started looking at private investor. We gave a lot more than what we want to, but you know, a means to an end, you have to. But once we have the first project, it's now easier to walk into any banks and they see our resumes, they see what we've done, they see our returns, our ROIs, and right now, you know, money, I would like to say money's not a problem, it always is a problem, but definitely paving that street took a while, took a lot of hard work, but again, persistence, you gotta follow up, you gotta do it. And again, treat everything as a business. Even your mom and your dad, you have to treat as a business. Don't take anything personal.
So for me, I recall Jim Rivol had this quote saying that if you really want to do it, you find a way. If you don't want to do it, you find an excuse. So if you really want to do your business, like me, I have to find ways to fund myself. But luckily, I started this Roth IRA I found when I was pretty young, when I first got my job. Back that time, the Roth IRA, a person can contribute about $2,500 in the beginning, but the later on you can contribute $5,500 a year. With those money accumulated for about 20 years, you can take the money you put in and take it out without paying any tax. And you don't need a CPA to do that. You can just do this by yourself. So by using that technique, I started using the money that I put into the stock market and then put the original funding out. And then that's the money that's funding my business.
So in Life Lessons, since I came on board in '94, Life Lessons have been around since '88. So it's a family business. My brother and I own the business. Our father started it. He started it with some money he earned. He got from a lawsuit settlement, a patent infringement. When I mentioned the challenging issue in 2001, at that time we were $750,000 in debt and could not make a debt payment. So the bank was going to shut us down. And I had an uncomfortable conversation with the bank and asked them point blank, how many sets of keys do you want, and do you want us to show up to work tomorrow? And it took me asking that question a few times before they finally understood what I was asking. Because I told them I couldn't make the debt payment, but they finally got it. I put a pro forma together to show them what we could do, because we did have some business. We just couldn't make the payment at that time. And within 5 years, we were 100% out of debt. So I mentioned that story for a couple of reasons. One is, I'm an engineer, my brother's an engineer. We're incredibly risk averse, and so we don't like debt. So that doesn't mean that that doesn't work for all of y'all, but we don't have any debt, and we don't intend to have any debt. That's just the way we operate. But the fundamental key is cash is king. It really is. And it almost always takes more than you expect. If you make an estimate of what it's going to take, it's almost always 2x. It just really is. The way we've functioned since then, in order to ensure we have enough cash, and fortunately for us, we grew at 100% sales this year, which was extraordinary. We didn't have to leverage any debt. We were able to fund it through our own cash. So what my brother and I have done is, our goal has been to be very, very conservative with it. We do a net working capital valuation at the end of every year. We pay bonuses to our employees out of that, and then we have a number that we hang on to every year, forecasting what we're going to do based on changes in inventory, people, sales, and we leave a lot in the company. So basically, we reinvest in our company. We leave a lot of money in there, probably more than most investors, company owners would, and that's put us in a really good position and helped us survive a number of really challenging instances. And the other key that probably seems a little, that doesn't necessarily relate to funding as much as anything, but in a sense it does, is communication. You really have to be very diligent about communication, whether that's with your bankers. I mean, that's what's helped us survive when we were struggling in 2001. If I didn't give the bank a good plan and communicate regularly with them as to what we can do, they wouldn't have supported us. They wouldn't have gone along. At the same time, I mentioned vendors. If we weren't, I mean, things happen. Sometimes we couldn't pay our vendors. But rather than not tell them what was going on and make them contact us, if I said we were going to pay somebody by a certain date, if we couldn't make that payment, I called them on that date and said, I'm sorry, it's a tough conversation, but we can't make that payment at this date, but I forecast I'll be able to by next week. And in most instances, I was conservative on that sense, and we were able to live to it. But there were instances where that didn't work out. I'd have to call them again. But you know, when you're not talking to them, human nature is to assume the worst. And that, you know, I get that they would start to think, well, we're never going to get paid. But by me running front of it and communicating regularly with them and living to the commitments that we made, they were willing to go along with us. So we had vendors that supported us, we had banks that supported us, and at the end of the day, had we not done that, we would not have survived.
So of course, as the financial advisor here, I have to put a shameless plug in that if you need any help managing any of these things, that's what we can help with. So I will say, Chairman Daniel had mentioned earlier that you either are selling to your friends, family, and fools as your first people. When we're looking at growing a business or working with clients that are growing their business, Did you have enough cash reserve to grow the business, or did you have to use other resources before you decided to go ahead and implement? And in the event that something went wrong, did you have a support line to fall back into?
Well, so this circles back to the last conversation. In our instance, because it was such a difficult circumstance, in 2001, we've just been averse to debt. So we've funded our business and our growth through our own cash. And we didn't, one possibility, we're an S corporation, so one possibility is to take distributions, take the money out, have it be ours, and then loan it back to the company. But that works fine. I know a lot of people that do that. We chose not to do that. We chose to leave the cash in the business and allow that flexibility to handle our growth. This year, it got really tight because we were growing so quickly. I mentioned cash is king and it costs more than you think. We left what we thought was a lot in our business. We didn't expect to grow 100% this year. We knew we were going to grow at a healthy level, so we were conservative. But even then, we recognized there was some value to have a backup. So we went to our bank and established a line of credit. We didn't have to tap it, but it was very reassuring to know that the bank was there with us and that we had the resources should it come around. Because we weren't willing to compromise, obviously paying our employees, that's not an issue, but we weren't willing to compromise the payment relationship we have with our vendors either. And that's the one that usually gets compromised. Instead of paying them 30 days, most of our purchases are on terms, so we net 30 terms, net 45 terms. They're so important to us, we weren't willing to compromise that. So we wanted to make sure we had a backup to ensure we could do that. But in our case, we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to, because we've been so conservative and reinvested in the business, we've been able to do it through our own capital.
So in my case, I feel like I'm very fortunate that I kind of planned at least 2 or 3 years ahead on the initial investment. So we had a line of credit there first. And then secondly, I also had a business loan going. And then thirdly, I have a supportive family. They're understanding the situation. But looking back, I feel like I still underestimated the difficulties the business environment can give me. I really underestimated. Had I get the opportunity to rethink this again, I think I should have prepared more because now when you are actually in the business environment, you can feel there are so many channels that you can spend money, and then it's so hard to keep track of everything. So I'm still learning, but I just feel like I'm okay with that. I hope that's good enough to share.
So, I agree with you. Reinvesting back into your business is crucial. So when we first started, when we bought the bar in downtown, we made a pact. The partners and myself were like, look, for the first, we had a budget, we had a business plan, everything was all there. We planned 6 months to be able to float, and that we basically reinvest back in the business, which means none of the owners took any pay for a year, and we just put it in there as a nest, just in case so that, again, we're always looking for the next expansion, because, any business, the detriment of any business is you hit your ceiling, but the thing is, there's no such thing as a ceiling. The ceiling is what you make it. So by us taking that sacrifice and having that opportunity to dip into our own funds, we didn't have to go begging for money from our families and friends because we already drained them out. We cashed out all of our 401ks. We did everything. We knew that we needed, 6 months, but in reality, try 2 years. Reserve at least 2 years. Come into a business. Anything you read online that tells you, you should have 6 months capital, it's wrong. It's wrong. The more you have, the better, because most business fail because of undercapitalization. And that's the one thing. You can have the best marketing plan, you can have the best product, but if you don't have that funding, your door's going to shut down because you can't pay your rent. But leverage your money, because then now you have cash flow. Cash is king. You can do the next thing, or at least wait for the next recession to hit, but still be able to survive. And so managing your money, This is where it's really crucial. If you don't have a financial advisor, if you don't have someone that's a CPA or someone that is knowledgeable in managing your funds, I recommend that, because as business owners, we're good at running our business, but we're horrible at managing our funds. Have that partnership with, you know, someone that you trust that can kind of give you that guideline and that can actually speak when you don't want to hear, because you want to grow, you want to go, you know, 10 locations, whatever it is. You're going to dream big, but you got to have that person that's going to say, you're not going to survive, it's not going to happen, you've got to slow down. So your advisors, your circles of confidence that you utilize, those are crucial. Listen to those voices, because those voices are the voice that's going to keep you afloat and it moving gradually. And again, the whole point of it is staying in business, taking care of your business, and feeding all the families that rely on you.
I agree. There. Reinvesting in the business is not common. Most people take every penny out. Most people pay their CPA to show no profit, so they pay no tax. Most people want to grow in hyper mode. So one of the things that our organization does is we try to help entrepreneurs understand projected growth, managed growth, and we do it through a course called Profit Mastery. And we do charge for that course, but we also work with our clients in session afterwards on their financials to make sure that they understand if you are projecting this much growth, how much more capital do you need in your business? And we can get it down to a pretty, you know, accurate number. The other thing that I would caution most business owners is that the minute you write your business plan, it's out of date. And nobody I know ever goes back and updates their pro formas after month 1 to see what now is happening in year 5. And so that, to me, is really still part of your due diligence as a business owner. Again, most people, if they own a business, they pay their CPA to do the taxes. There's a lot of financial CFO information and strategic advice you can get. It's really well grounded, but again, most of our small business owners, I don't see them wanting to pay for that. So you either need to pay your CPA, your financial advisor for that, or you need to learn to do it yourself. I don't think I missed anything.
Peg, I'm going to direct a question directly at you. What are the key things businesses forget to do when maintaining their business strategies? So if they're looking to grow, what are the key things that they forget to do?
Forget to do? I think most of the time they forget their focus, and they have not gone deep into their first market before they spread out. And so they dilute their efforts. So to me, not remembering who your customer is, not knowing that avatar, not knowing how to really connect and bond with them, and how narrow you need to stay because your resource pool is this big, not this big. Not this big, sorry, missed that hand gesture there. That to me is the thing that I think most people let get away from them, and then not monitoring your finances.
Leigh, this one's directed at you. Most business owners, as you had mentioned, come into the business from as a technical person. How are you willing to give that identity up and then gain the identity as the manager, the leader, and now the entrepreneur?
So this is really a hard lesson that I've learned. I tend to do everything myself. In the first few months, I even learned how to do QuickBooks, and I do my payroll, and I learned a lot of things that I try to get everything handled by myself, because that gives me security. But then I feel that won't work because my time is eaten up, and I'm working like 15 hours a day, and then 6 days a week. Then I start thinking I need to let go some of the things, but how? How can I let go things? without I have to worry about it, right? So I found documentation is a good way, is a good tool for me. So I found that if I document how to do things, then I can make sure the people that I train can do things that I want them to. And that's a good way for me to, like when you have employee turnover, you can guarantee I remember Mary said with the West Pecan Coffee that they have to have handbook. So I have actually spent a lot of time working on the documentation part, not only documenting the technical part, but also the accounting part, and also the graphic design part, some of the practicals. So I basically start writing. I think that's a good tool for me to switch the role from the doer to the manager.
Thank you. Jeff, this one's for you. Now, it seems like you've grown your business substantially since the beginning, and as it being a family business, I imagine that it was quite difficult to come into systems and processes that were already in place. What are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future effectively going forward today?
Well, I think the most critical challenges for us right now, one is implementation of technology. I mean, we're bombarded with technology, so understanding what's relevant to your business, how it can work. I was fortunate enough to go to a business first presentation that CISU actually gave, that PCDC did a couple weeks ago, and it was really interesting about the use of robotics. Yeah, so that gets my brain working. Can we implement robotics and what we can do, and how would that change things? I'm not sure that there really are places for robots in our business, but the understanding of technology, the use and implementation of the technology, and then the training of it is really challenging, I think, because there's just so much out there. There's so many opportunities. In order to keep up, I think it's important to do that. But I think you can easily get caught up in it and lose your way, lose your focus. I mean, you still need to maintain what you do well and what you're best at and use technology as a resource, understanding it. The other key challenge really for us, I think, is people, in finding the right people and the best people. For us, it's important to hire the best, and we're very slow to hire. So, it's a tough labor market. There's no question there, especially in Central Texas. And so, finding those people, and bringing them on, and luring them to your business, and then encouraging them to stay is challenging. So, I think those are the two biggest that we're running into right now.
Adeline, so speaking about growing Hanover's and going to the next generation, the second location, and all of the other businesses that you've been a part of, how did you find and empower employees to do the right thing and to be your biggest cheerleaders? As Jeff mentioned, employees are going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle when growing your business. So how did you go about this position?
Well, with the different businesses I have, it's kind of a different mindset. The bar, obviously, is a rotating back door. I mean, we get such high turnover rates just because, again, people not showing up, moving or whatever. So we adapt, but we do create an environment where the staff feel that they obviously are part of the big pictures. Now, as far as my other businesses, empowering them with information, not necessarily just expecting them to come in and do what they were hired to do, but actually allow them to travel and take the journey with you and learn. And that's one of the key thing that I found in my other businesses is people are hungry for knowledge. They want to emulate success. And if you just keep them in their cubicle and don't let them see the other side of the pasture, it's hard to get them motivated. So we're always challenging them to step outside of their comfort zone. So what we do is every few months we put them in a position where it makes them extremely uncomfortable. And within that uncomfortability comes a sense of wanting to learn, wanting to know more. So that's how we typically motivate our staff, is to encourage them to not limit themselves. With that, it actually creates a great loyalty. My day job, I call it my day job, we have very low turnovers, just because people, once they get stagnant, they get a little bit complacent in what they're doing, they tend to, lose their drive, lose the passion, lose, the motivation. But if you give them responsibilities that make them feel that they're part of the big picture, that they're traveling with you in this journey, whatever it is that you're going to, it actually, it creates a new birth for them in terms of wanting to be part of it. And I wouldn't trade them, because they are so much more than they were when they started out with us. And I expect them to be a lot more, in the future.
So this is going to be the last question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for any questions you may have. Now this one's going to go to all of you. Of course, Peg, this is going to be a little bit different than it's said. The present is good, and your present growth is something that deserves to be celebrated. But we're told don't linger there. Know that this growth is a stepping stone to even more, right? We all have future dreams. Adeline and I spoke before of, well, when one of the kids is out of the nest, guess what? It's time to bring in another kid. So with that, what's your 5, 10, or 20-year vision of how your business is going to grow? And for you, Peg, where are you seeing the trends in this time needing to change so that these wonderful business owners can accomplish that goal? I'm going to start with you, Jeff.
Well, for us, based on our age, a lot of that is centered around what are we trying to build? Is it a legacy business, or is it a business we want to build and sell? And that's an important consideration as you move along, and something that needs to be a regular component of the dialogue between the owners, of course. In the instance of my brother and I, we talk about it all the time. 5, 10, 20 years, what is life last going to look like? And it changes. It really does. I mean, your life circumstances change. But it is an important conversation to have. We don't have a 20-year plan. We have a 3 to 5-year plan that we live to that at least sets a target for the business, and most importantly, those that are supporting you on the journey. As it relates to us specifically, our goal is diversity. I mean, we've had all our eggs in one basket per se a couple times, and that goes well until it doesn't. Markets change, and they're good, they're bad. And for us, it's important to have enough diversity in the relationships we have, the products that we sell, to ensure that we can handle the slow times in the other markets and product lines. So our focus is really on staying true to who we are, living to what you can be best at, but finding a way to diversify your business so you can handle the natural cyclicality of it.
For me, my long-term goal of building a business is to build one that can run without me, hopefully. But I know it's a very difficult goal, but everything I do, I try to think what setup I can contribute now that can help lead to that result. Ideally, for me, a successful business should always have certain capacity to look into the new products and the new research area, and something that will evolve with the existing or new technology. So I don't think running 100% full capacity will be an ideal thing. So ideally for me, I feel like I need to work on the setup with a certain proportion dedicated to the production and a certain portion dedicated to R&D and figuring out the new things to accommodate the new needs.
I'm a serial entrepreneur, so coming into any new businesses, I hate to say this, but you gotta have an exit strategy. What do you want to do? I mean, that's my 3, 5, 10, 20 years. As businesses evolve, needs change, technology changes, a lot of time what started out as a great business becomes obsolete. And it's not because you didn't want it or didn't plan for it, it happens. Now, of course, diversifying, making sure that whatever business that you're in has the capability of scaling to the next, change, technologies or whatever that may be. But sometimes you just can't avoid it. It's just one of those things, no matter how much you scale, it just becomes obsolete. Now, by having an exit strategy helps significantly because then it gives you an opportunity to plan for the next phase. And the next phase may be something completely different. Now, I've been in the bar business for 15 years, and of course, if you count college years, working, that's a lot more years than I want to mention. But I'm getting to the point where I can't do the late nights anymore. My kids, needs their mom at home. My other businesses need me during the daytime. I would have to be up 24 hours a day just to, make everything work, and that just does not become reality. And so with that, being able to, the expectations of legacy, I love that, but do I want to see my kids kind of go into that business? I mean, a lot of them you want to, but they probably won't. So having an exit strategy, that should be your long-term goal, and know where that would be. And then be prepared. Once you do exit, what do you do? Where do you go from there? So it's okay to have what I call serial entrepreneurship, because that is your growth, that is your way of continuing the progression of being your own business. It may not be this one, but it'll be something else. The doors will open, and just make sure you walk in and see what's out there. But definitely you leave the ego outside when you do enter those. That's the one thing I've noticed coming into a lot of my businesses is I have so much expectations, and I think I can do no wrong, and I'm arrogant when I come in. Boy, walking in that first step and I fall flat on my face, that really teaches you that, nothing lasts forever. I mean, we're not gonna be here, forever. So treat your business in the same way. If you have a business that's capable of being passed on from generation to generation, that's great. But most of our businesses probably won't stand that vital lifetime. But again, plan for the exit.
Okay, I left my crystal ball at home. So I can't tell you trends in your marketplace, nobody can. I mean, maybe the analysts can, if you go down deep enough into the literature, but we've talked about a lot of different things that are happening on an accelerated pace inside of business, all businesses. And so the three things that I think are going to be fundamental for owning and operating and succeeding in business going forward are going to be centered around pivoting and flexibility and uniqueness. So the first thing I would say to you is learn agile techniques. You are already entrepreneurial, and one of your core competencies is flexibility and coping, and you need to be able to assess and change and pivot as the market moves, as your customers move, as technology becomes obsolete, and reinvent yourself over and over and over again. That your refresh rate is getting to the point of technology where it's every 18 months you may now need to reinvent your business because of cultural changes. The second thing that I would say is that you probably are going to have very, very, very individualized customer interactions. We're no longer marketing to broad groups. We are figuring out ways as consumers to construct our own experience. I don't want to put shoes on and go to H-E-B, as Commissioner said earlier. I want that food coming to me. I want you to interact with me on chat. Answer this question right now at 3 a.m. And there better be somebody there or I'm going to your competitor. And so the systems you have to put in place and the people that you have to put in place and the thought that you have to put in place about how do I deliver the experience that this gentleman wants or this woman wants or, that person wants, which is different than everybody else. You have to co-construct it with me and I have to be ready to do that. And then the third thing that I see is that human resources is elevating to a strategic position. Just human resources management is also about an individualized experience for each and every one of your employees inside of your company. If you create the experience for them that they are desperate to come to work, they are your biggest advocates, they believe in the mission, sometimes even more than the founders. Those people are very, very brand loyal and they have no intention of leaving. They want to make sure that the company succeeds and goes forward and changes the world. But if there's not something in there for them, and if it's a cookie cutter program, there's less incentive for them to stay. There's just less they're getting out of the experience. So those three things, I think you have to think very individually about the work processes, the customer interaction, and the employee experience inside of your business.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our panelists today for giving such wonderful advice to all of the entrepreneurs in the room. I will say, per Peg's comment, we do have to be flexible, as I want to make sure that you can get to the next session in the event that you'd like to. Please find any of these panelists with any questions that you may have. And with that, I will say that this forum is dismissed, and if you would make your way into the hallway to go to the next forum. There'll be one located in here and one across the hall. Thank you.